Good morning and good evening to the audience and our speakers for the very first Transatlantic AI Exchange web session. I'm Thomas Neubert, today's moderator, born and raised in Germany and working at Intel's headquarters in Santa Clara, and have been in Silicon Valley for 30 years. We are super excited to kickstart this initiative to bring together AI experts and connect them with the up-and-coming German AI ecosystem. Based on the incredible feedback we already received, the outlook of AI-related web sessions will last all the way throughout 2022. After COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, additional face-to-face sessions are being considered on both sides of the Atlantic. Allow me to provide a quick overview of what to expect from this initiative. The federal government in Germany published and updated a paper in December 2018 and 2020, respectively, called Artificial Intelligence Strategy of the German Federal Government. The paper coined the terms AI made in Germany and expanded to AI made in Europe. The content of this paper sparked the idea to invite experts to share our expertise, connect people, analyze AI use cases, but most important, transfer a sense of culture to accelerate the go-to-market and commercialization of AI solutions. Our quality speakers today, representing some of the target audiences from the federal government, the leading AI research centers, startup ecosystem, to very experienced and successful German-American entrepreneurs and investors with years of expertise having lived in Silicon Valley for up to 30 years. Now, over the next months, experts will talk about real-life use cases, how to apply AI in vertical segments, how to deal with regulations, how to build startups and raise money. Corporations will explain challenges around AI scaling, and cross-Atlantic research centers and universities will introduce us to the incredible programs how to connect education and research programs directly with startup entrepreneurs. Now, the backbone of the German industry, the SMEs, or what we call them, the Mittelstand, should also gain a lot of valuable insight in the possibilities to adopt AI to stay competitive. If anyone has AI-related topics of any sort, please reach out to us and we will consider building them into the program. Also, this initiative is built around you, and we like to hear your feedback to adjust and adapt. So please take a moment to fill out the survey at the end of the session based on the link we will provide, and we will also add it into our follow-up mail afterwards. At the end of the additional 30 minutes, we will provide a new Zoom link to the chat channel to open up a networking opportunities for people who are interested in it. Lastly, before I invite the speakers to introduce themselves, a big thank you to our founding members, Petra and Ragnar from AI Hamburg, who joined me in this journey very early on. And of course, our leading partners, the German American Business Association, in short, GABA, and the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, in short, and in German, DFKI. And our partners, the German consulate in San Francisco, of course, the US consulate in Hamburg, our friend Olaf Groth from Cambrian Features, the German Association of AI Companies, and the German Business Council of Boston. We could not do this without sponsors. Therefore, I would like to thank our platinum sponsor, Taylor Wessing, and gold sponsor, the German consulate in San Francisco. So let's get to it. I like to introduce each speaker and invite them to explain who they are and how they are related and contribute to this program, AI Made in Germany, AI Made in Europe. So first, Marco Alexander Bright, the head of the Task Force at Artificial Intelligence and Digital Technology from the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs. Marco, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me today. It's a great pleasure and an honor to me. My name is Marco Alexander Breit. I am head of the AI team. We are responsible for quite a variety of topics. It's not only AI, it's blockchain too, cloud businesses, digital technologies like Open RAN that's going to come and conquer the world in a few years. And so there's pretty much a wide array of responsibilities that we have. And I think they're all interconnected, and they are all interconnected, and AI is just a technology. It's sometimes it's a bit kind of overvalued in its impact. Sometimes it's undervalued. Some people have a complete misunderstanding of what AI can actually do for us and what exactly are the effects of AI on our workspace and our social relations and our communication. But in the end, and this is what I think is a valuable contribution of this series, is to make clear what exactly is AI, where exactly are we in right now? Are we in the United States? Are we in Europe? And what exactly is ahead of us? And I would like to dedicate my time to one thought I want to share with you. So I'm a Machiavellian since I studied history in early 2000s. And Machiavelli says one thing: if you really want to make something, doesn't even say what exactly you want to make. If you really want to change something, you want to make an impact, you need an opportunity. And the wise leader is the one that seizes the opportunity, that knows when an opportunity is going to show up and seizes it. So from a European perspective, a lot of the opportunities that are right now there are obviously in the United States or in China. Why is that so? Because both these countries, and I kind of make it that I kind of my cookie cutter argument here. On the one side, you have Silicon Valley, a huge ecosystem of money, bright minds, innovative ideas, and people that can that are introduced to each other. On the other hand, in China, you have Shenzhen. Just let me use that shifter for the same thought. Confined space, great ideas, a lot of money, people getting introduced to each other. And in Europe, we have a lot of good ideas, but we lack scalability. We lack scalability because there is no digital single market yet fulfilled. We lack scalability because there is people that have very bright ideas in Paris and people that have very good ideas in Florence, in Italy, or in Spain, and then in Berlin and Germany, but they never see each other, they never meet each other because it's a highly federated system of ideas, money, and context that you can be introduced to. So what we need in Europe to kind of seize the opportunity, seize the day, is we need a digital ecosystem because we are not able to put a physical ecosystem of the same strength like the United States or China within the European Union. And this is actually what is the larger goal that we are striving for and what we try to achieve with the German politics is we want to foster ecosystems, not only in Germany, but in Europe. And when I see the speakers and when I see the people contributing to today, I see that there's a lot of people that I know already, that know me already, and that know what we are doing. And I hope that the people being here today in the call know each other so we can kind of contribute to that ecosystem thought, getting to know each other, getting business relations with each other, getting just in a state where we express and exchange ideas and bring all this together in a digital ecosystem as of today. Thank you.
Great. Great, Marco. Thank you very much. So maybe next in line would be Philip. Philip Slusalek is the Professor of Computer Graphics, Scientific Director, Agents and Simulated Reality at the DFKI in Saarbrücken, which stands for the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. Philip, welcome to the team, and go ahead.
Yes, hello, good evening or good morning to everyone, depending on where you are. Yeah, let me give you a little bit of background where I come from. I originally actually studied physics in Frankfurt and Tübingen, then moved into computer graphics, computer science, got my PhD in Erlangen, and then moved as a visiting assistant professor to Stanford. So I have quite a bit of the of the environment. I learned quite a bit of how things work in Silicon Valley, even though I haven't been there that long. Since '99, I'm now a professor for computer graphics, as was just said, at Saarland University, right on the French border in the west of Germany. We've done some great research there. Real-time ray tracing, which is now in all graphics cards going forward, is actually going back to some of the research. We just got a technical Oscar for that part. That got Intel actually interested in Saarland University. Intel opened the Intel Visual Computing Institute here in 2008. Instead of 5 years, it actually lasted 9 years. Great collaboration. Again, a little bit of that Silicon Valley spirit that we brought over here to Saarbrücken and to Germany. And since 2008, I'm also a scientific director at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, the largest independent worldwide research center. I'm also now part of the executive board driving this all forward. Within the DFKI, my group actually focuses on bringing together AI, specifically what we call trusted AI, or explainable AI, with computer graphics and simulation, and the notion of modeling the world around us, which we then use for simulation and generating synthetic data for validating AI, for training and validating AI, going towards the certification of AI systems, which is a high topic here, highly requested by industry right now. 3 years ago, almost exactly, we founded, together with a couple of other guys, we founded Claire, very much along what Mark Alexander just mentioned, this need to bring together the European AI ecosystem, the AI community. AI in Germany and in Europe was highly fragmented. And with Claire, we've been able to bring together, we just passed, last week, passed 400 AI labs across all of Europe. Claire focuses on excellence across all of AI. I need to stress this here. It's not just deep learning. Yes, deep learning is really, really, really important, but there are other techniques as well. And this idea of hybrid AI, of neurosymbolic or neuroexplicit models, so the mix of different AI technologies, is really a high topic right now. Lots of research there. I was part of the high-level expert group on AI. And in that, we helped shape the European AI agenda. With Claire, we are also behind 3 of the 4 excellence networks, research networks that have been created in Europe end of last year. And we're also driving the coordination project among that. So it's really all about bringing people together, identifying the right ideas, connecting that to industry, and then driving that forward. And I think if you if there's one specific topic that I would like to highlight, it's what we call trusted AI. It's this idea: can we actually provide guarantees about the AI systems that we're using today? You might know that, some of the AI systems, you show them a stop sign with a couple of colored patches on it, and there's no way we can easily make it recognize something completely differently. And so that's a very fundamental problem that we all know about. And I think that is could be one of the key European contributions, is really, like in particular from the German side, right? This focus on high quality products made in Germany. Can we make that a story for German and for European AI bringing forward? Just to finish up, I think it's not just Germany. We have to do this all together in Europe. And that's what we're trying to set up with Claire, and which is strongly supported by DFKI, but also by INRIA and many of the other big research organizations. And we're now building up the industry network there as well.
Great, Philip. Thank you very much.
Just as an introduction quickly here.
Yep. Thank you very much. And you already tapped on a few things that we will dive a little bit deeper in in the Q&A session and in the next following 20-30 minutes. So thank you very much. Next in line, Jörg Bienert, President, founding member of the KI Bundesverband, the German Association of AI Companies. Jörg, welcome. Good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas, and thank you for having me for this great event. I think this is very helpful. My name is Jörg Bienert. I'm on one hand president and co-founder of the German AI Association, KI Bundesverband. On the other hand, I'm partner at Alexander Tamm, one of Germany's leading data and AI consultancies. In my former life, I had several startups, and with one of them, Pathstream, we got funding from Silicon Valley investors as well. I spent several years in Cupertino, got to know the difference between these the spirit of doing business in the Valley and in Germany at that point in time. We sold Pathstream in 2015 to Cisco. I went back to Germany, and after 1 year at Cisco, I founded an AI startup. And in late 2016, I had some kind of Sputnik event because I went to the largest scientific conference in that space, which is the NIPS. Today it's called NeurIPS. It was in Barcelona, and together with a few other startups that attended there from Germany, we figured out, well, there are a lot of things going on here, but we are missing the contribution of the Germans. The German research scene and German universities, research institutes, as well as the German companies. And this was when we started to dig a little bit deeper into it and figured out, well, there's something going on here, but in Germany and Europe, we haven't heard, we are not on track yet. And this was the reason why we gathered together and founded the German AI Association in early 2018, so a little bit more than 3 years ago, with a goal to help and to get on track here to establish AI in German research and especially in economy in the companies. Right now we have more than 320 members. These are all companies that have a clear AI focus and have their headquarters in Germany. We have done several events, several conferences, are in continuous consultations with other associations, with the ministries. And we are also building up a European network of AI associations. Right now we are close to 9 and gathering together and promoting our thoughts and our ideas also on a European level. So there are a lot of topics that are being discussed right now and that are important in order to foster the usage of AI in Germany and Europe, but we will, I think, discuss this later more in detail.
Great, Jörg, thank you very much. Last but absolutely not least, Richard Sucher, founder, investor, former chief scientist, Salesforce, endless record of contributions and expertise. Richard, welcome. I know you are traveling all over the United States by now, but thank you very much for joining us. And if I can recall correctly, the background that you are is actually something where you just recently were. So you're living the dream. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here, everyone. Yeah, I'm originally from Dresden. Studied in Leipzig, Montpellier, and Saarbrücken for my undergrad, bachelor's, and master's. Then did my PhD at Stanford. Won the best PhD thesis award there for my work in deep learning and neural networks for natural language processing, trying to help computers understand, automate language processes, translation, sentiment analysis, things like that. Then I became an adjunct professor at Stanford also to teach that because it was a fairly new area. Really loved research, still love it. Still helping a little bit these days. Now one of the 5 most cited researchers in the field of natural language processing, according to Google Scholar, but then also saw the applications and wanted to get some of those things out into the real world more quickly. Started a company called MetaMind. We got acquired by Salesforce, then was the chief scientist and EVP there for several years. And then last summer, actually wanted to get back into the startup world because I couldn't quite shake this idea off that I had 8 years before, which is to build a better search engine, compete with Google, have something that really uses natural language processing to summarize internet content usefully for people, but also protect users' privacy better, and give people real control over their internet experience. I think is something that will come up more and more also in the transatlantic relationship with AI in the future. And how do you tax where is value actually generated for big companies? Love a couple of philanthropy projects that I'm working on too. I'm on the board of the Global Fund for Women to help women's and girls' rights all over the world. Through that, have actually donated a bunch of money to some projects in Kenya that supports women getting into computer science. Started a Schüler-Innovationszentrum, a student innovation center in my old high school back in Dresden. Really excited about that. I'm also now an active angel investor, invested in about 50 companies or so. I'm an LP in a couple of venture capital funds in Silicon Valley too, and some in China and Singapore and Australia. Mostly have invested in US startups, but hopefully also continue to invest some more into German companies and startups. Happy to walk through examples of where I think there are a lot of really interesting and exciting applications that I think SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, can also usefully work on. Just last week, I actually met with the Chancellor and the Cabinet at the Gipfel or Digital event. So always really excited to brainstorm and help think about how Germany can catch up a little bit to the United States and in some cases to China as well. Lots of ideas on what could change, but maybe we'll wait for that for the discussion. So happy to jump into that.
Great. Richard, thank you very much. So to the audience here right now, I hope you get a feeling that we are really trying to establish a series around AI to help and ignite the German ecosystem, or the European-wide ecosystem, but with the focus of Germany, to be more correct. And as you can see with the people who have spent their valuable time in attending the session, we are trying to capture every kind of representation to give different viewpoints, and I will actually openly invite everybody on this call back, the speakers, for any future sessions, because there's so much knowledge combined in this call by the speakers in different views, that after this initial kickoff session, we will then in the future have very specific vertical oriented sessions, very use case oriented. By the end of June, we have our next session. We need to update our website, so it is not accurate yet. But by the end of June, we have a session that focuses primarily on VC investments on both sides of the transatlantic. So Richard, definitely, I will invite you back. I will invite everybody else back at the right time for the right topic. So maybe I will pick a few questions that we had discussed previously in the brainstorming session. And let me just start with a high-level overview question, looking at Germany and their established industries, right? If you really think about it, Germany has a lot to offer. Germany is known for a lot of good things: biotechnology, automotive, manufacturing, sustainable energy, and so on and so on. So now the question is, how can we play it smart and literally stay in a leadership position by adopting AI fast? Mm-hmm. And I would say the focus is on the word fast. And it's not that we don't know how to write white papers, or this particular paper that actually ignited me to put this program together. I think Germans are pretty good with that. It's about fast go-to-market. It's agility. It's a cultural thing. It's about commercialization and productization. So one thing that came up is with Germany and AI and the efforts, are we in a situation where we might just end up to develop some UI, add-ons or something, and serving the already big established, we call them the hyperscalers, the cloud service providers, the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Facebooks and such. So looking at the strength of Germany, where do we start and how do we execute from different angles? So maybe who would like to answer first? Maybe Philip from, okay, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think maybe two quick points on that. I think Germany could do a better job to connect universities to small and medium-sized businesses and build more incubators next to the universities. If you have a place like Saarbrücken or Munich or Berlin, and really a lot of other good universities, there isn't an easy drive. There are no startup classes you can take as a student to really, in many cases, and I know there are a couple of projects like in the works to remedy that, but basically I think incubators closer to the top research institutes are going to be extremely helpful. And the second point that I also raised last week is there's kind of this mentality of not invented here in a lot of large German companies. When you look at US companies, they acquire other smaller startups almost weekly. Like Apple acquires almost a small startup like every other week. And German large companies like SAP always think like, well, why spend a couple $1 million? Like there's always some internal teams, like we can probably do this ourselves. But they kind of underestimate the power of bringing new young talent into the company, of getting an outside perspective. And then of course, also getting the technology that those folks have built right already, without having to then also go through all their internal processes to get it to market. So I think we could see a lot more fast growth companies that are already mid-sized or larger if they had more of a mentality of acquiring other smaller startups. So those maybe are just first 2 points. I could ramble for hours, but like,
no, I appreciate it. I think it's very good feedback. Philip, you wanted to say something, and I want to challenge Jörg and Marco, particularly on what Richard just said, to add to his comment. But please go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Richard, at least to some degree. I mean, there's certainly way more that can be done. On the other hand, there is actually in many universities, there is actually a pretty good program. DFKI itself, we had over 100 spin-offs. We have here on Saarbrücken side, where on campus, we have the Max Planck Institutes, and we actually have a shared support structure. The university offers courses in entrepreneurship and so a lot of that capabilities, a lot of that information, a lot of that support actually is there. I think what we're missing is really the infrastructure and the mindset. Right, the CVs are the VCs are not there. They're certainly not in the same amount as they are in Silicon Valley and many other places in the US. The mindset is very different, particularly also, you mentioned the big companies. The one thing is not taking a risk by buying a company, but trying to do everything from the ground up. The same is actually true with research, I would argue. The way they typically handle research is, okay, let those researchers do their thing, right? We wait until the PhD's been written after 3 years, and then we'll look at the result, and then we'll decide whether we use it or not. And by the time Google and others have implemented the whole thing 3 times over. That is just completely incompatible with the really fast developing field of AI. And so we actually at DFKI, we've started what we call transfer labs. It's really bringing the companies into DFKI, doing the research jointly with us, engaging early. Of course, there's a higher risk, but I think that's exactly what is needed. It's just one element, but really at some point we need to change mindset. And I think AI really has the potential, because it is so disruptive, to actually switch at least some of the companies over into a different model. And we see this. This has essentially not been possible before, let's say 3 years ago. But now at least some companies are really getting there. I think the collaboration with the startups is actually pretty good, I would say.
On that note, Jörg, KI Bundesverband, what's your opinion? And formerly having lived here in Silicon Valley.
Yes, I fully agree to what Richard and Philip said, with maybe some additional aspects. I think we have great researchers and great results in the universities. For example, the LSTM, one of the basic technologies in AI was developed at the Technical University of Munich. We have these programs for spin-offs, for startups, enabling startups working together with universities, but it's not agile enough in some cases, and there are a lot of roadblocks that make it not as easy as in the Silicon Valley to transfer IP, for example. There is I know several startups in our association who are working together with research institutes and are not able to get funding fast enough because there is a huge discussion on how the IP there is managed, because the research institutes don't want to transfer the IP to the startups, just want to license them, and therefore it's difficult to find external investors. So this is a common pattern, and the next step is the amount of money that you get from VCs here in Germany is still much lower than in the US, because we are not bold. We are still risk averse, and VCs don't have these huge funds. They are looking twice, 3 times, 4 times before investing into a startup. And one reason for this is also because the exit channels are not as big as in the US. As you, Richard, mentioned, the large German corporations are not used to do these large acquisitions as they do in the US and in the Valley. So this in this whole chain of innovation and especially fast growth, there are several aspects that we still can improve, that still have to improve. It has since I started with pastoring, it has become much better. I remember that we had much more difficulties in finding money, and this was one reason why we moved to the US and got venture funding from Koschler and Andy Bechtolzheim and others. So there a lot of things have changed, but I think there is still a lot of room for improvement.
Marco, not to put you on the spot, but listening to this conversation, the AI Made in Germany paper is calling out, I think it's, if I'm correct, 5 million euros to invest to build up the German ecosystem. By listening to this conversation, what's your viewpoint, and how does the money being spent and where?
I could make this a very boring session if I just completely subscribe to the points of view that have been expressed, especially the points being raised by Richard. The thing is, we all have a lot of anecdotes about what's going wrong in Germany, and what I think is one of the best cases we need to think about the way forward is the car industry. Everybody knows, look, the Germans are not very well or very good at bringing research to the market. Why not? Because we are not a marketing people. We are research people, and we have this hardware mentality that we say, look, I want to sell my product when I know that it's ripe for selling. It needs to be good, it needs to be reliable, it needs to work, and I don't want to have my customers complaining. I want to have my customers buying the next car from my company too. So that's hardware mentality. But AI, and especially whatever has been happening in digitization in the last 20 years, is a whole new mindset and a whole new mentality. It's a software mentality. You just shove the product on the market, hope that it's at least the minimum viable product, and then you improve it over the years, hoping that you do not lose that many customers because they are not satisfied with the product in the first place until you get there, right? Fail it until you make it is, I don't want to oversimplify things, but I just think that this is the difference. The German mindset is very hardware driven, good, reliable product, and the mindset that's needed for the data economy in the next 20, 30, 40 years is, look, let's do something. If it's not going to work out, then we kill it fast. But we do not wait until somebody else has brought it to the market, because scalability now matters. And that's, again, brings me back to the car industry. Look, the Germans have invented the cars. The guy that was first mass producing cars was Henry T. Ford. But if you look at the market right now, there is still 3 major German car companies doing old school cars. And if I compare this with Ford, I would say they're doing fine. But not now. Their position is being challenged by the software mentality Teslas. And whatever I said about software and hardware mentality, you can see it here perfectly too. So what comes now is that what you could say the German moment, when we are really, really, really fearing that we're going to drown, not fearing to fail, but fearing to drown. And the German car manufacturers, they started to notice 4 or 6 years ago, okay, there's something happening. And then for 4 more years, they said, look, that's not going to be too complex and difficult for us. We will survive. I can remember a dinner at the Federal Chancellery where the bosses of the German car companies said, look, yes, there is Tesla. Yes, there's automation. Yes, there is autonomous driving, all these things. But you know, everybody's going to buy German cars for the next 20 years too, because we make the best cars. None of these CEOs is still there. Everybody has been either fired or has been retired, and others taking their place. And if you look at what German car companies do right now, it's exactly what Richard says. It's exactly what Jörg said. They understood that this is an ecosystem thing. They understood that there is something that they lack, which is software. They are going to either buy software companies or they collaborate at an ecosystem level. Look at HERE Technologies, the mapping service, or they start launch funding programs and bring new technologies and new people into their companies. And in the end, I just take that to bring another perspective into the discussion, which is we have been doing a lot of things wrong, or we have been missing some opportunities. But right now, I see that there is a lot of momentum within the German ecosystem. There's a lot of momentum in the German political sphere. There's a lot of momentum in the leading domains of German and European industry. So I think we're looking at a bright future. But what we need to do is exactly what we need to do, what we're doing today. We need to collaborate. We need to exchange views and stop talking about the issue and get there to tackle the issues. Oh, and maybe to answer your question, the 5 billion, yes, they are being spent on universities. They are being spent on bringing research to the market. We have very successful small programs that we scale up. In my ministry, for example, the AI trainers, which is something like AI consultants that have knowledge of data economy and artificial intelligence, that go to small and medium enterprises, speak their language, and kind of explain to them based on what they see at this small and medium enterprise. Look, I've seen your processes, I've seen your product, I see how you do things, but AI could improve whatever you're doing in this way, in that way. You could buy that product, you could go there, just try it out and kind of refocus them towards the data economy that's going to come. But this is just a small amount of measures that we are taking right now. Thank you.
Yeah, I made a note. Philip, go ahead.
Yes, so maybe there's some weird echo. Someone has to mute. Now it's better. Yeah, so two very short things. First of all, IP transfer, actually, when we had the Intervisual Computing Institute here, it turned out Intel actually had much more issues with IPs in the US, with the big US universities than they had here in Germany. So I would take that with a little bit grain of salt, because licensing is a big issue in the US, probably more than here. I wanted to come back to something that was said in the beginning. Germany is really good at doing these incremental research things, building on top of things we have and kind of improving things. I think we're not as good as, and we don't really have programs to have those more disruptive, these big ideas and getting funding for them. I mean, I always use the example of a good colleague of mine who went to the US because Facebook is just reinventing the computer, the display, and everything together for their VR and AR, because they have to. we don't have any programs that are fundamental like that. And one more thought with the German industry, we have this and it was mentioned before, we have this really strong traditional industry, manufacturing, automation, automotive, many others. What we need to do, I think, do different than in the US. Of course, we need to fund AI companies as well, but we specifically need to get the AI into those traditional companies, into those products, into those processes, right? The production processes and everything that belongs to it. So strengthening the strength that we already have, and try instead of, or at least in addition to open up new markets solely on AI. And I think that's not fully understood now yet in the broader space. And the really difficulties, those companies that we're talking about, the small and medium-sized companies, they're very focused on their strategy. They have to, right? And just doing something new like AI is actually really hard to do. So we have to take that into account. But there are programs that address this. So hopefully we can make a difference. And these transfer labs that I talked about at the FTI is one way of doing this.
So I'd like to maybe have a follow-up question based on what Philip just said. Before I forget the other thought, I want to have an open invitation for Marco specifically to come back to the series that we are putting together. And maybe you have the ability over the next few months to present to the audience the results of the research work that the AI trainers and the competence centers do. I think that would be extremely valuable for this audience. So you have an open invitation to come back. I have another question based on what Philip just said. By listening to the conversation, I think we all want the same thing, and I think we all know how it could be done and how it should be done, but it begs the question why it hasn't been done yet, or maybe it takes a little bit more time to learn from the past, put things in place, and then let it play out over the next 12, 24, whatever months it may take. But one example that comes up here a lot is the startup community and the mindset. And I think there are some interesting, things in place. As I mentioned earlier, in June, we have a specific session with venture capital people on both sides. But the specific question I would like to have to the speakers is about the Mittelstand, because the Mittelstand is the big backbone of Germany. And we are not here to replicate and preach to the choir that everything in Silicon Valley is right and we just need to cut and paste, because that's not the reality. So looking at the Mittelstand, looking at the industry where Germans are really known for and where we have a history, 50 years, 100 years, whatever, what's your feedback? What's your advice of how to connect the Mittelstand with the opportunities to adapt and learn and commercialize or develop around AI? Anybody wants to have a crack on it?
I think there are several aspects, and connecting to what Philip said. On one hand, I think our chance lies in applying AI technology into the offerings, services, and products of the current Mittelstand. I think this is on one hand our chance, because there we can stay in several aspects. Market leaders, worldwide market leaders in very specific niches. But this is a threat as well, because Mittelstand is facing several challenges there. One is the lack of resources, especially in Mittelstand. Therefore, we have, because there are not enough data scientists in the market, and the data scientists that are really good are not going to the Mittelstand because they want to work in teams. In larger teams, to exchange ideas, to get trainings and so on. And this is what a lot of Mittelstand companies cannot provide. So it's really necessary that we establish a very deep connection between the Mittelstand and the AI consulting companies in Germany and Europe, so that we can build really good applications there. And the second thread is the question, is this technology applying AI to the specific Mittelstand products really unique? Is it becoming part of their product, or is it becoming part of a larger ecosystem, especially from the large hyperscalers in the US, because they are providing all kinds of services. Yeah, the consumer AI, the standard AI features like OCR, text-to-speech, and all these features that are used on a very broad level. These are more or less done by the large hyperscalers and by these services. So the big question is, can we establish a USP, or do these hyperscalers get into this area of providing AI services for Mittelstand products and services as well? And then it can become a threat then, because then we are entering into this platform game, yeah, and the winner takes it all game. And who at the end of the day provides the services, who has the customer relationship, and is at the end of the day the German manufacturing companies are just providing the machines and the metal for the business models that are mainly driven by the large platforms, and especially AI platforms. And this is, for me, this is one major question that is really difficult to solve, but that we really have to be aware of.
When I talk to startups and students, they are younger generation, they are much more open-minded, they are globally diverse, all of these things. They, I would say, will get a hang of this quite easily from a mental perspective. But what I'm hearing here also is a lot of the stuff that holds us back is structurally related. And it relies on our past and the things that we have established over the years. Taxes and regulations and paperwork and all of that stuff. Exactly. So Marco, from a government perspective, is there anything where with the new initiative there are like fundamental changes that are going to be implemented to break certain old patterns that have held us back in past, pivot situations, like when the internet was invented, when social media was invented, when the cloud was invented? Now we are in something that I believe will be even bigger than maybe even the internet. But what is the government doing or suggesting that needs to change fairly quickly?
Well, we have been working on redoing the system on how you can pay your employees in startups, especially in data and AI-driven startups or in tech companies, which hasn't been, well, let me put it this way. There are parts in the government that would have gladly seen a more or an easier way to pay your employees with shares from your company, but this has been kind of this very difficult negotiation with the Federal Ministry of Finance, because they are of another opinion. You see, it's a political problem at the moment, but this is something that we have been trying to do, and something that the Chancellery especially has been aiming for, and us in the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs. But on the other hand, there is something that I don't think it's structural from a tax perspective or something like that. There is two things that are, in my point of view, more important on a structural basis. The first thing is, if you take 100 startup entrepreneurs from the United States, 60% of them are happy with selling out. They're looking for the exit, and then they start another company or doing something else and work for a larger company like Richard did. And then they go back to this ecosystem on the other side and fund other VCs or other ideas. In Germany, I think a lot of the people that, especially when they start a business from universities, they are very happy when they can sell out to a bigger American player. And this has been seen very often, because they thought, oh, look, we fund that company and then we make money and then we see whatever is being done. But then they are lost. Their ideas are lost. The money is lost in the system. There is not that serial entrepreneurship that you can see in the Silicon Valley, for example. At least it's not that often. There's a lot of examples I could give you for that. This is one structural problem. We Germans, when they are entrepreneurs, they do not automatically aim for the world. An American wouldn't even think about, look, am I targeting the North Californian market, or is it just something that I want to sell in California and Texas? They build a product for the world.
Yeah.
The Germans say like, look, yeah, we need to start in Berlin, and then maybe you go to Baden-Württemberg because there's Stuttgart and there's a lot of car companies. It's just a different mindset. But there is another thing, and this is the money that you can get for a startup in Germany is pretty easy. It's not the problem. The problem is not when you want to fund a startup. The problem is when you are in a Series B, Series C, or in a scaling phase of your startup. Then there is that funds missing in Europe and in Germany that kind of have the ability to pay a $100 million ticket. And this is something that we are very easy to find in the United States, very easy to find in Israel, very easy to find in China and wherever. So there's a lot of good ideas being born in Europe, but if they want to scale up, they suddenly have American money, Chinese money, Israeli money, Norwegian money, whatever, but it's no more French money, German money, or whatever. And this is something that we urgently need to address, because in the end, it makes companies like Booking.com, that has been a Dutch startup and is right now a 100 billion, no, probably less because of COVID, but it was a 100 billion company before COVID, but it's an American company right now. And that outflux of talent, ideas, and downright taxpayers' money is something that we cannot tolerate. So in the end, what I try to say is we need to change people's minds, and we need to change the VC system, but not in the startup phase, because it's very easy to get money in the startup phase in Germany and in Europe especially.
That's a very interesting observation. Thank you for sharing that. Now we are almost close to the hour. I would like to ask Richard, with his American entrepreneurial viewpoint based on today's session and the feedback, what do you think? What's your takeaway? Have we convinced you to invest more in German startup companies than in the US, as what you mentioned earlier? I would like to hear your feedback.
Yeah, I really like Jörg's thoughts on the complexity of IP. I also like Philip's sort of counterbalance of like, look, Saarbrücken is doing a good job. I think that is also something that in the US there are more often fewer but bigger centers of excellence, and there's sort of the Föderalismus in Germany where like, oh yeah, we're going to create 100+ AI professorships, but then there should be 5 here, 5 there, 6 there, 7 there, and there's not a single place where everything can concentrate. So I think one sort of constructive thought I have is to just be okay sometimes to have fewer centers of excellence. I think if Germany even had 1 or 2 universities that are always mentioned when people mention Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, and then there's just 1 university from Germany in there, in that list of like top 5 or top 10 even sometimes, like I think all the other boats will rise in Germany. And so, not every international student is able to get into Stanford or Harvard or MIT, but then there's still a lot that go to Ohio State University. And that is still ranked higher than Leipzig, even though Leipzig is like a solid, great education, provides a great education as well. And so I think there's a little bit of that sort of spray and pray mentality that Föderalismus kind of supports. I think the other interesting things, there's less VC money. So I think I'm excited to just invest more in German companies myself. I sort of don't enjoy spending too much time in the high level. So personally, I would say like, let's get started. Let's provide a list where if you have an idea as a German student and you want to get funding, how do I find those companies? How do I personally just like invest in great German startups? I posted one here that does automated claims management for damages to cars and other kinds of insurance things, and tries to automate processes. And I think they're a good example of something that can happen in Germany. And then I think it's one thing that we have to acknowledge is that AI will need data, and it will need hardware infrastructure to train and then think about processes. So it starts, of course, with having somewhat of a business mindset and thinking about, okay, where do I actually apply automation technology? I think in general, Germans love efficiency, right? They love getting things done more quickly. They don't want to work like insane 100-hour weeks every week. In fact, it's probably illegal for many people. And so like trying to guide that efficiency mindset into thinking about processes, software processes now that you can automate, and then helping and having universities also help these SMB companies to think about how to collect that data and then help them get started on the hardware processing of training these big AI models. So those are just a few thoughts. It was a really great conversation. It's really great to meet everyone.
I want to quickly thank everybody on this call for their time. I think this was a really, really valuable conversation to have. And I want to remind everybody, this was just the official kickstart of hopefully a year and a half of regular monthly sessions where in the future we will dive much deeper. We will have direct conversations with universities, corporations. I will have an open invitation to every contributing speaker today because there's so much more to talk about. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Again, as we said earlier, this is just the beginning of hopefully an interesting AI knowledge exchange for the next years to come or months to come. And if you look in your chat window right now, Michaela has shared the link to the breakout sessions for the networking for the next 30 minutes. I invite everybody to stay on and get networks and chit chat a little bit. And with that, I will close this particular session, and hopefully I will see you in the future as well as in some of the breakout sessions. Everybody, thank you very much.